what came before. I actually got into, getting off the topic, but getting into, talk about outing myself. I'm going to do that right now. I got into a discussion with someone in my book club a few weeks, really about this topic. Her profession really kind of looked at somebody does something, they're bad, they're a bad person. And I was talking about the perspective that, well, people do bad things for sure, but it doesn't make them bad. And I'm curious about what happened that brought them to the place of doing that thing, which is a different place that doesn't mean that I don't think that what somebody does is wrong and harmful, and I'm worried about the victim in that case and also providing care for that person. But I also worry about and get concerned about the people who are doing the harm. What is the underlying story, and what it brought them to that place? Welcome to Therapy, Tech, and Takeout, where humor meets healing with bite-sized chunks of wisdom and techie tips. I'm Toni Teixeira. I am a therapist, entrepreneur, recovering overthinker, and an ethics nerd.
I'm Jackie Toale, an entrepreneur, unapologetic spreadsheet addict, and low-rent stand-up comedian. Hey, Toni, what you vibing on this week? It's so good to see you.
Jackie, so good to see you, too. I'm really vibing on Thanksgiving this week coming up. Just really excited about family coming together, and it is my absolutely favorite holiday because it's just like all about gratitude and you get to give and, think about just all the best stuff. So I really love it. I love even though I don't eat turkey, I enjoy making all the fixings. I've been hosting for many, many years, and sometimes it's a small bunch and sometimes it's a big bunch. So this year I'm especially excited because my sister's coming with some of her kids. Yeah. And my mom will be here, and she's 94 years old. So
that's awesome.
I'm really feeling a lot of gratitude to have her for another Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And just a little something about me, a little fun fact. I was born on Thanksgiving Day.
Gosh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So every year it doesn't feel like it's my birthday until it's Thanksgiving. And I get this awesome, holiday, birthday celebration. It just feels like I'm surrounded with a lot of love. So November's kind of my birthday month. And I think of it as just the whole month because I get my birthday, I get Thanksgiving, family.
That's awesome.
So yeah, I'm just really excited about that. How about you? What's going on for you?
I think this week I'm super excited for Thanksgiving too. I'm trying to embrace when things don't go right, as can happen when you're getting together with big groups of people. Or even today, I walked outside to take my dog out for a walk, and I was walking for a few minutes, and I was like, one of my feet feels really hot, and the other one doesn't. And I forget what it's called, but where one of my hands will get really hot and the other one's freezing cold and stuff. It's something. I don't usually get it with my feet, and I looked down, I had two totally different shoes on. I had a Birkenstock and a loafer, not even close. I'm how did I do this? It's not nighttime. It's the middle of the day. I'm very far from home at that point. And so I was just I'm walking around my neighborhood with two different shoes on.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. We're just rolling with it. It's, so yeah, I'm trying to just laugh and enjoy and embrace the chaos of the season, and have a good time with it. But I am also super excited to get into our topic today. I think it's really interesting, and I think it kind of ties into a lot of the topics that come up around family and privacy and all that type of stuff. So if you're open to it, we can jump right in.
Yeah, for sure. Let's do it.
Fantastic. Well, so today we're talking about an article. What was it?
It's a Newsweek
article. Yep. About a mom who, her son had recurring psychotic episodes. Is that the right way to say it, Toni? Is that an insensitive way of saying it? It feels I don't know. Okay, so he was having these episodes and
episodes of psychosis.
Psychosis, thank you. And her younger son came in and was you've got to see what he's posting on Snapchat, the older brother that's having these episodes. And at first she was really horrified by the level of exposure and the consequences of that and all of that stuff. But I think through the process, and it was something that I don't think she was really able to fully rein it or, stop either.
Mhm.
And so she kind of had to embrace it, and I think the consequences of it for her seemed to be like overall positive, and that like she
Mhm.
found a sense of community and a release of shame and things like that.
Yeah, this particular article, I mean, the title really drew me in. I was horrified by what my son did on Snapchat, right? How could you
Right?
not
You're
be
like,
completely drawn in by that? But she takes us really on this journey of what's happening with his mental illness and how he was using Snapchat to really just talk about everything that was happening to him. And you could see the etchings of the psychotic episodes, his manic episodes in the what he was writing. It was frantic. It was, kind of really activated and, raised up
yeah,
to higher levels as his mental illness was progressing. And she found out when he was in the hospital, her husband took her son to the hospital where he was committed and and still had his phone. So he was really talking about what he was experiencing in that moment to an outsider who might be reading it and not know that this person has a mental illness, might think that he's being trapped, he's being abused, he's
right.
being harmed when you don't have the situation and the context. It looks very different. And that really got me thinking too about what happens in social media and what people are sharing, how we're not always getting the full context of what's going on. So it said a lot. I felt like that was really a big piece to really think about in this article, just in general about social media, but very specifically about mental illness and what that looks like when people are sharing. And sometimes they're oversharing, they're exposing themselves
Yeah.
and they're exposing their families.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting like I didn't even know that that was something that was possible. Like I thought if you wound up in like a residential treatment situation, at least from like things I've known about in the past, like usually like media and like having your phone and stuff like that is something that people don't have access to.
They eventually took his phone away from him. It was
Yeah.
before they took his phone away
Yeah.
that he was in his episodes and also able to share on social media. But there was this other kind of critical piece that was going on, which is anasagnia. Try trip over that word, which is a lack of insight or awareness that you have a mental illness and that anything is going on. So it feels like everybody else is wrong, right? You're like
Right.
really aware of what's happening in the world. So when you're sharing kind of from that perspective, then you're really going to be writing about how other people are harming you rather than really understanding what your behavior is and what's happening, and that there's a mental health condition even going on. It's not, in the old days we would think, oh, people are in denial, but it's really a critical piece of some kinds of mental illness that people might actually not be kind of having that awareness
Yeah.
that there's harm here, that
Right.
their own mental illness is harming them, and it's not other people that are harming them. So, and from being from the outside, when you hear that again, you might think that that person is being harmed, not really realizing that there's a mental illness. So I think we have to be really careful about what we're accepting as facts.
Yeah.
When we know families are on board and taking care and you know,
Yeah.
doing all that stuff, yeah.
Well, and I think it's interesting too to think of like what would we want like these platforms to have a responsibility for as well?
Mhm.
Like is
Yeah.
there something in, when we think back to some prior conversations we've had about like using AI for like, conversational things, especially in teens and alerting parents of concerning behaviors or things like that, would we want these platforms to be like trying to detect, if somebody is in crisis?
Mhm.
I don't know. I think it's an interesting component, an interesting opportunity for perhaps help for people. And then also
Mhm.
maybe like protecting the person too. Like, I mean, it's a weird balance, right? Because like
Right.
if you're not in, a mentally sound state to be putting things out there, do you want something out there that's going to live forever? about yourself,
Yeah.
especially when you're a
Yeah.
teenager. It's a difficult position to
Yeah.
be in.
It's a very slippery slope in terms of protection and awareness and helping people, and then we can get into the area where there's way too much control.
Yeah.
Like weighing out the risks and the benefits of it are, really we're getting into that ethical area. Like, what if artificial intelligence could pick up that somebody had a mental illness and they were in an episode and the way they were writing was from that place and they didn't know it, so AI could detect it and help that person, and they could shield them from, like you said, having something written on social media that would be there forever. But then we have the worry that there's something that is kind of controlling, and freedom of speech. I think that kind of could
Right.
take away our freedom of speech if AI decides this isn't appropriate. Because then we have the other end of the spectrum where, survivors of assault, victims of sexual assault, you might come out. Somebody could see that as well. Is that mental illness? That person, maybe they're not telling the truth. Maybe we shouldn't believe them.
Right.
So we have to be worried about who has control of that and what that looks like. What I think the moral of the story was in this situation, which was really interesting, was all of that was out there. The mom was feeling, Collie Gallagher, I think was her name. She was feeling really exposed. She had come to the understanding that we all have to, in all walks of life, not just with mental illness, but that we can't control somebody else, that they have to make the decisions, whether they have mental illness or not. We can't
Yeah.
control what our family members are doing. And she made peace with that. And instead of it ending up being something that was working against her, making her feel worse, she actually found more support, like you mentioned in the beginning, from the community, her community, and just communities of people who understood
Yeah.
and could relate to what it was that was happening. So, like, letting it run its course actually did
Yeah.
something really, really important. Yeah. I mean,
It's
it
the thing
brought
I
up
come back to,
things.
like, yeah, well, how much, would she
Yeah.
have been robbed of the experience of, having this forcefully, I guess, exposed, but then having it out there, and it's no longer something where, she can't talk about it, or, it's kind of out of her control and it's out there, and like you just have to kind of pick up from where you are and move forward. And what a gift that actually wound up being for her in her life, and if it had been censored or pulled or whatever, you know that wouldn't have been available. And I think it's, people living with people with mental illness and stuff, I think it is its own kind of like isolation, it has its own isolating characteristics to it as well. And so I think it's interesting to see the positive after effects of having some of this stuff come out. I thought that was really interesting.
Yes, she talks about using his social media posts as an early detector
Yeah.
of what's happening. Is he in a manic episode? Is his psychosis increasing? She was watching his social media to check on his symptoms to see how he was doing, to figure out if he was using drugs, because
Yeah.
the impact, of drugs on top of a mental illness is going to exacerbate a lot of what's going on. Wondering if she should call the police, really noticing, and family members were helping her do that. I think she said her
Yeah,
other
you kind of
children.
share the too.
Yeah. And the other thing was worry of suicide.
Yeah.
If he's not posting on social media, then she's worried that, is he contemplating suicide? He's not showing up.
Yeah.
He's just not there. What to do next? So there was actually I think there's a lot of support in how she was using social
Yeah.
media for herself. Maybe it was calming her own nervous system because there was nothing else she had control over. At the very least, she was able to see how he was doing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that kind of, coming to terms with, like you said, of like, I can't control other people, any other people, and I just it just is what it is. And I think this helped her get to that place with this in a way that might have been really hard. I think a lot of the times when we're dealing with things, we don't, like, the hardest part is recognizing it, right? Like, because until you are recognizing that something is happening, you can't really intervene. And make any changes. And so I think that this kind of like made her recognize things in a different way. But oh God, my heart just broke for how hard it
Yeah.
must have been to get from, those beginning steps to where they are.
Yeah. From the wanting to really shut this down so nobody knows what it
Right.
is to accepting help and support. Think about like what that journey. I mean, I really felt like I was on this journey with her as she went through the story, and her son is doing better, and she also realizes that that's no guarantee either. So she makes the whole process very real, very relatable. And it's not like a story where there's a happy ending or a not happy
Right.
ending. It's
Yeah.
like she really talks about the reality of living with someone with the mental illness and what it's like to be a family member in there and have it broadcast all over
Right.
social media.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's something that while like maybe not the exact same set of situations occurs, I think so many people can relate to these types of things, be it from mental illness or addiction or, you know, drug induced psychosis thing,
Hmm.
like there's just so many different things that kind of touch on a lot of these through lines.
Hmm.
And I think it's also really helpful to see it, at least for me, from the framing of like this is a person, this is my child, like this is somebody like I'm going to love, like that, like it's not like
Yeah.
there's not like you have to figure out how to love that person through these really difficult times and deal with that. Like, is it protecting or, like how do you, and as kids, age into adulthood and stuff, the complications of all of that. But I think the storytelling in the article was really, she did an excellent job of really kind of bringing all of those emotions and difficulties to light in a really beautiful way.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it also speaks to the not just mental illness, but just the other things that we can't control that people do on social media, whether they be family members or friends. We don't agree with everything that friends or family does. I think that there are a lot of people also because of the fractions in
Yeah,
our world that they shame and other people who are not like themselves.
absolutely.
And there's something to be said for this let it ride,
Yeah,
like moral to the story, which is I can't control it. So
yeah.
let it just be there. I was just wondering how we might want to talk about how that attitude could be helpful in all places and in all walks of life, and understanding that the best way to deal with what we can't control is to really let it be and let it go.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I
How
mean,
does that land for you?
I think this is a really good example of it, and I think I'm lucky enough right now to have a few other examples of it with, like, friends in my life and stuff, but yeah, I think, especially being, like, a woman and a mom and a professional and stuff in my life, like, there was, like, work me, and then there was, like, me. Like, but, like, work me was, like, not me, right? But it was something where I was, like, to 90% of people, like, your goal was to be, like, buttoned up and, like, almost
Yeah,
robotic
that's
and,
right.
like, like, nothing is bothering me. I have everything under control, like, and, like, life's not like that. Life is messy and difficult and hard. And I
Hmm.
think it's really cool to see, some of my friends, ones that are in leadership positions and one that aren't, like, being honest about the difficulties and the struggles of life in a way that I don't think I was comfortable doing. 10 years ago in my career, but I'm trying to embrace more of it now because I see the benefits that, in yours to folks who can embrace it. But it's hard. Like it's a
To show the messy side, to show
yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
to
that,
change,
yeah, yeah.
It's a family pattern too, right? Like I mean, it's like I grew up in a family where it was like very professional and stuff, like outwardly facing and things he needed to look a certain way and stuff. And so it's like, I think that it's hard to you have to
Hmm.
just, kind of take
Yeah.
slow steps to kind of release yourself from that.
It's not for everyone. And I'm also thinking about the not only what I want to share, but also my reaction or my response to what other people share.
Yeah.
And that it's not up to me to shut it down. It's not up to me to judge or to say, this is I approve or disapprove of the way you live your life, or, the what it is that you share. I can certainly choose to, kind of unfollow,
Yeah.
which I've done in my life, but it just got me thinking about the critical piece and how people can be really critical of other people on social media for what it is that they share when we really don't have control over that. I mean, I don't want to get into, a discussion of like, we can get into a discussion of freedom of speech and stuff like that, and harm and what the harmful speech is. But I'm really just talking about the sharing, how I live my life, who I am, my identity,
My
what's
values. Yeah.
my values, the what's happening, for me. Just because it's someone else in my family doesn't mean I carry the burden of that, or
Yeah.
I should feel shame for that. It's like, really, I'm wondering how to teach people to just be more curious about information and what people are sharing, to kind of from a non-judgmental, compassionate way, because we don't know who's struggling with a mental illness. We don't know, what people are sharing and what it means for them. But it doesn't really harm me. If it doesn't really personally harm me and somebody's sharing something, but I need to shut it down because it's a family member or a friend. Yeah.
It's like that's something I struggle with a lot. Like and am trying to, I think, readjust my perspective on, because I think I used to have a feeling like even if it's not harming me, if it's harmful, like if you're saying things and they're harmful to other people, like part of my role as having the privilege of not being one of those people
Yeah.
that it hurts is to say, did you know that that's actually harmful? Or try to like bring attention to it. And I think I used to be more of a fight every battle type person with that. And I think now it is much more, you nailed it on the head, being curious and trying to ask more questions when something like makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up in in that way, to try to just like ground and center, and then like be curious, because I do really honestly believe there's so much more similarity. Like this one thing might be really different and we might have really strong differences, but it might be because we're just looking at the world really differently, right? I think we've talked about that in the past, like how our perception is really a unique experience for just us, but yet we apply it to everything. um
Yeah, we
and
forget
so
that other people have different perspectives. I
right.
mean, this is kind of like watered down and out of left field, but have you seen the Wicked movies? Number 2
I
just came out.
have.
Did you watch Wicked, right?
I know, I
Just
just saw it. I did.
loved it. Me too. Yeah.
Yeah.
We were saw it on Friday when it opened. But here we have something that happens, and you have the two perspectives or two totally different stories. Literally at the center of the story is the what's happening with Dorothy, right? And like how that
Yeah.
goes. But it really depends on where you stand. It really depends on whose story you're getting. So even when we're getting things that are hateful and harmful, I don't want that to be there. At the same time, I'm also really curious about, gee, I wonder what it is that happens that brings that up.
Yeah.
I wonder what came before. I actually got into getting off the topic, but getting into talk about outing myself. I'm going to do that right now. I got into a discussion with someone in my book club a few weeks ago, really about this topic. Her profession really kind of looked at somebody does something, they're bad, they're a bad person. And I was talking about their perspective that, well, people do bad things for sure, but it
Right.
doesn't make them bad people. And
Right.
I'm curious about the what happened that brought them to the place of doing that thing, which is a
Yeah.
different place to sit. That doesn't mean that I don't think that what somebody does is wrong and harmful, and I'm worried about the victim in that case and also providing care for that person. But I also worry about and get concerned about the people who are doing the harm. What is the underlying story, and what
Yeah.
did it brought them to that place? So that's just my 2 cents. So we had a very heated debate about this topic. I don't think I changed anyone's mind in that moment, but I did notice there were some women who were of my mind. And
Yeah.
I felt really supported in that, and that was wonderful. Shout out to my book club. Thank you.
That's awesome. That it's great, right? Like, I think it's important that we have those spaces where it's like, look, we don't agree on everything, but we can be civil and curious and interested. And at the end of the day, know that while we might not agree on everything, in general, this is a safe place, right?
Yeah.
And
And
trust that, like, you know, the other person isn't there to create an unsafe place, even if that's what it feels like to us.
right. And and I'm going to add, and I think the conversation continues so that we can continue to keep spaces safe. And we might not always mean to be doing the wrong thing, but it's going to happen. To accept that, to do it with care and compassion, self-compassion, compassion for others, and kindness. And we can always get back on track because we're always going to make mistakes. We're all
Yeah.
human. Yeah.
We're all human and things change, right? Like, I mean, there's
Yeah.
language that I used years ago that I don't use today. Like, you know,
So true.
there's just, and I had to learn, like, there had to be something that happened where I was like, oh, that's something I want to make a conscious change about how I speak. And I think it's it's important to offer that grace to other people as well. And I think that it's great to see the social part of social media. And like what the promise of it was, right? Being an actual social network, connecting people and helping people find their people and all of that kind of stuff. It's nice to see how that unfolds through the lens of this story, because as we've talked about in other episodes, it's not always the case.
No, it's not always the case. Yeah. Yeah. This was a really great topic. I really enjoyed talking about it. And as usual, we don't really ever come to,
Right.
like an aha moment. We have like aha moments, but it never really, there's no way to really like even sum this up except to really, the wicked metaphor of it really depends on where you stand and whose perspective that you have and in what moment of time. This mom at the
Yeah.
beginning saw social media as being harmful and she felt so much shame and vulnerability. And then over time, it became a source of strength and community for her. That was really helpful. So, we're back to the like, it really depends. It
Yeah.
really depends on where you stand and who you are. So
Yeah.
thank
It really
thank you
does.
for finding this wonderful article for us to discuss.
Absolutely, Toni.
this
Thanks for
week.
finding the time between your birthday and your holiday. I appreciate it.
Thank you. You too. Have a great, happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. Yes. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll see you guys next week. Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.